Welcome to Sailing Avanti. We are Gerard and Jacqueline, sailing our 41-foot monohull Avanti around the world from Cape Town, South Africa.
On this episode, we leave the Grenadines for Dominica. We have some breakages, but also see all the beauty that Dominica has to offer.
We've just left Redby this morning and we are heading north for Dominica. Because it's north, we've had to wait for some easterly winds so that we don't have to beat all the way up to Dominica. But it is rainy this morning. Gerard will show you now, but it is pouring over St. Vincent and Beckley was pouring this morning. So we're glad to be leaving on the easterlies, but we wish for a bit more sunshine. We have about 150 nautical miles to Dominica. So we've left in the morning, which means we should take about anything from 24 to 30 hours, which means just before breakfast we should be there for clearing in, so we don't arrive at night.
For this trip, we decide to put 2 reefs in the main and we adjust the genoa to suit. The weather forecast is about 20 knots on the beam with 1.5 meters of swell. We hit a few squalls at the beginning and the wind goes up to 35 knots, after which it subsides and it goes to the 20 knots that was predicted. We only lose a little bit of wind in the lee side of the islands, where we have to actually motor for maybe half an hour or 40 minutes as the wind subsides completely. As we get out of the lee of the islands, the wind picks up to 20 knots again and we adjust the sails to suit.
Extremely glass-like today. I can even see my reflection. Today we're entering Dominica, which will be my 50th country that I've traveled to, so I'm very excited. Ever since I was a small girl, I wanted to travel to the whole world before I got old. At that stage I thought that would be 30, but I soon realized that 50 before 30 was the dream, and then COVID stopped that, so I'm very excited to finally reach 50. Time to put up the flag.
This morning we got up in Dominica after our first night of sleep. We anchored yesterday, yeah. We had to anchor in the quarantine spot, which is not really the normal anchorage spots. So they first have to do a health clearance on you before you can go to land. So we arrived yesterday after 12 after midday, so we had to only go into the health clearance the next morning. We weren't happy with the anchorage. There's a lot of seagrass and not a lot of sand, so we had to anchor twice to get some sort of a set on the anchor. And last night it was fine. We got up every once in a while just to check that we don't drag. We set the track on our GPS to see that we stay in the same spot. And this morning we got up and we prepared to go to the health clearance first, so that we first in line, so that we could start exploring the island as soon as possible. And the wind started gusting quite heavy, and we actually saw that we were dragging anchor just before we prepared to go to the health clearance. The anchorages, like I said, is not great here, so we said, okay, we're not dragging a lot. The wind subsided as well, so we both went to the health clearance to see that we could quickly check in, or maybe I just wanted to drop Jackie and come back to the boat while she does hers. But while we were there, the wind picked up quite a lot, and the health officials weren't there yet, so we decided to take the dinghy back to the boat and actually move the boat to a different anchorage before we go for the health clearance. But when we got onto the dinghy, it was flooded, it didn't want to start, the wind was really picking up, and the dinghy handle, that was the throttle handle, that was also damaged a little bit in Bekwe by one of the dinghy docks, and a bit of a wave surge also basically fell off. So we didn't really have a throttle, so we got the dinghy back to Avanti eventually. When we looked on the track, then when we got back with these high winds, we saw that we were really dragging anchor quite fast. So we picked up anchor and we started motoring to look for another anchor or an anchoring spot. And then we realized that our windlass didn't want to work anymore. So a lot of stuff going wrong at this anchorage. So the windlass is the winch that pulls up the anchor and that drops the anchor. So the windlass was not working, so I reset it and just looked if there were any breakers that tripped or anything, but nothing of the sort. So we decided to motor to a mooring buoy, which we will stay on for a day or two, maybe until I can fix the windlass, and look for a different anchoring spot. Dominica is one of the islands in the Caribbean that's not highly developed, and it is said that it's the only island that Christopher Columbus will recognize if he comes back today. The local beer we are sampling in Dominica is called Kubuli. I think it's the only locally produced beer as far as we can see from the different shops. It's also a lager, and it also comes in this 250 milliliter size. It looks very much the same as the Haroon in terms of the labeling and the whole marketing style. So yeah, in terms of the cost, it's very similar to the other islands. It's actually a little bit less expensive here. I think on average we're paying about 5 EC or Eastern Caribbean dollars, so a little bit cheaper. And in terms of the taste, it's very similar to the Haroon that's brewed in the Grenadines. So not a fantastic tasting beer, but it is beer, so it's always good to have some of it. So in terms of a rating on this, in terms of taste, size and value for money, probably the same as the Haroon, so a 3 out of 10. We get up at the crack of dawn and go on a tour with Albert, a local guide. Albert's been doing these tours for the last 30 years and is really knowledgeable. The tour heads up the Indian River, named after the Arawaks that arrived here in the 5th century and was later displaced by the Kalinga people.
And we have mangrove snapper, and there are lots of other fishes like sprat fish and jackfish will come with.
Okay.
So you find the tarpon. Yesterday I saw 5 of the tarpons, which is about this size.
Oh, they're big.
Okay. And together. They are
Nice.
Piscinalis, the Latin name. You would not find these trees growing in the forest. You would not find them growing in drier area. It's because they need fresh water to survive. That's why you find them in freshwater swamp forest.
The Indian River was used to shoot scenes for the movies Pirates of the Caribbean. What you can see here is a house that was used for the second movie in the scene where Jack Sparrow visited the witch in the jungle. This house had to be repaired after it was badly damaged by Hurricane Maria a few years ago. When they shot these movies, they used some of the local guides to assist. Albert was one of the guys that was responsible to carry and to change the weapons that the actors used for the different scenes. Various other sites around the island was also used to shoot different scenes of the movies.
Dominica has 10 different species of crab. But here we can see only 4 different species.
Okay.
One of the largest one is known as the white land crab, which you can find here, and we find them further in the land because the big large holes in the land to lead into the holes. We can find a little fiddler crab, which is one of the smallest crabs. Then we can see the beautiful red leg crab, which is this one, and then we have a black one. We also have another little funny brown color looking one that lives up in the tree stems, climb up the tree stems and so on. You might see a few of them. But the white land crab is the one which is here.
Going up the river, you're not allowed to use a motor, so you have to row, as this has been declared a national park a few decades ago. Albert was an amazing guide, and we can highly recommend him for whenever you are in Dominica.
Those are called the silver mullet. And the barracuda love them very much, the silver mullet.
This one.
Tie it up.
Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave us a comment. Our Patreon link will also be in the description below. Next episode we head deeper into the forest in search of waterfalls and also the local parrots, the sisuru and the jacko.